Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Annalise here. Welcome to KP. Abba was leading me up here to go ahead and share something that he was kind of just dropping in my spirit. Um, um, yes. Okay. Help me, Holy Spirit. My goodness. Every time I get up here. Oh, yikes. Okay. So what he was giving me to share was basically elaborating on the word that we were talking about with King Arthur. And that's two parts. Go back and watch it. It's awesome. Because the way he was just speaking through there was just like, okay, my goodness. But he was adding to that in the space of speaking about King Arthur and how, like, how that all unfolded, and how we were touching on that part where it was talking about, okay, um Judas, where someone can be your Judas, and Judas has to be someone that is close enough to kiss you, that is close enough to know you, close enough to um, be, in your vicinity, where that's where you would have that betrayal because they were close enough. It's supposed to be like, that person that's supposed to know you, that person that's supposed to understand you, yet they did something that you felt either was like, utter betrayal and backstabbing, etc., etc. But then also understanding that sometimes what God calls you to and what God calls you to do and the way that he calls you to it, um may lead to things that you may have to do or may have to say or may have to just come away from, that may seem like a betrayal to other people, in which case you may be the Judas in their story, even though, let's say, you're not necessarily like, hey, you're Judas as in that character, that posture there, but you may be the Judas in their story because you had to come away from them, because you had to speak to them in a way where they just didn't understand, or maybe you had to do something that they felt was utter betrayal, but this is what something that maybe God would call you to do. For example, certain friends and certain friend groups or certain family members or certain people that are close to you, and they're not necessarily adding to pushing you into purpose. They're actually hindering your purpose. In that space, God will call you to come away from them, to consecrate from them. In which case, that means you can't hang out with them no more. You can't talk to them like you used to. They can't have access to you. You don't have access to them. There's a lot that unfolds with that. And a lot of people take that as like utter betrayal. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He's like, break that down. So they'll take that as like utter betrayal. Like, how could you, especially when it comes down to family members and parents? Like, whoo, they be having a whole hissy fit, not because it's really just them not understanding the family dynamic, but it's also them taking in this space of uh taking away something with their generation. A lot of the gen I, I don't know, it's just the ones that was born in like the 70s and the 60s, them ones. uh they they when you take something from them or you take something away from them, it's seen as punishment and it's not fair. And so that is where you get into that, but we're not here to get into that per se. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Let's keep it on topic. What we're talking about as far as in just going on or elaborating on that space of having Judas, having a Judas or Judases. You might have one, you might have multiple, you might have multiple in different seasons. um you might be the Judas in someone's story, but also how Abba was elaborating on that is that when it comes down to that, when you understand that they are a Judas and you really understand what Judas did, first is a space of, definitely go back and read that part of the story. It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of as far as in reading that whole what you call, because all of them have their own partaking and perspective point of view of what went down and what happened in walking with Jesus. So you can see that in this perspective here, that basically Jesus coming from the Garden of Yosemite, he was then basically like surrounded. And as he was surrounded by these Roman soldiers, you could see how Judas was the one to basically point out who he was, and therefore selling him out for 30 pieces of silver. In doing so, this commenced Jesus's trial that he was taken on, being sent back to the capital, being ridiculed by everybody. I don't like to talk about this story because I love to talk about this story because it's the greatest thing that's ever been done, but it's also like, what the Frank? Like, what? Excuse my French, but like, this man did nothing. And like, the way that they treated him, the way that they accused him, the way that they wow, the way that they then continued, it was like there was no mercy, there was no like, a lot of times you get to see that space of like, hey, without any evidence we can't sit here and accuse this man of doing xyz, and really all the evidence they had was that he was curing people, he was doing miracles, signs and wonders, and the only thing that was really tripping them up is that it couldn't necessarily be explained. And it's like, hey, it's my father, it's the most high God, and Jesus, he is the Messiah that has come forth. And in doing so, and the way that you reading the Bible, it definitely it helps, but when you read it like it's a movie, it definitely helps you to understand the dynamic of what he had to go through. But I feel like The Chosen, the show, amazing show, does a very good job of telling it from the perspective, as far as in giving the dynamic and giving the circumstances, and just the way that things may have looked in that time. um just the space of like where they had to go to do things, certain laws that they had to abide by, certain things that they had to do, certain things that were sometimes considered a normal. um you have to watch it. It's absolutely amazing, breathtaking. And to accuse him, to ridicule him, to put him on trial, then to sit here and slur him and beat him, and my God, to place a crown of thorns on his head, to whip him until his intestines are coming out of his side, to nail him to a cross and crucify him. Wow. He did that because he was taking on the world's sin, the world's sin, all the sin from the past, all the sin that you will ever do, all the sin that you've done, all the sin that you're thinking about. He paid for it all. It's just, he was the lamb that was slaughtered for the world and paying for it all. He's on assignment. That was his assignment. And when you realize that is what he came to do, and you also realize the many dynamics of the things that he went to do, also in that act that he was assigned to, in that mantle he was assigned to. Not only is he the example, not only is he the way, the truth, and the light, not only is he the door to Abba, not only did that tear down the veil, but that also conquered death, hell, and the grave, where there is nothing that can separate you from God. There is nothing that can separate you from the love of God. And so when Judas did what he did, he was on assignment. The Most High God is the author and the designer. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. He writes it. So in writing this story, even the Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, the whole Bible is the story that he's written. And with Jesus, and that's that wow. Thank you, Holy Spirit. This is where that the play Ransom comes in, because it's about a king who literally died for his kingdom. And that's just a perspective of it. Abba speaks through so many different things. He's everything. He speaks through everything. And a lot of times when I'm trying to like I got my spiritual antennas on, and they're just like picking up on all of the ways that he speaks, is like it can be overwhelming sometimes, because he speaks so much and he speaks in a lot of different things. Staying on track here. Thank you, Holy Spirit. The point being is that Jesus was on assignment for what his mantle was, what he came to do, what he came to set us free from, what he came to do in the story that Most High has written. And you have Judas. Judas is a character that's not necessarily liked a lot. Well, not really liked at all. However, he was on assignment. So when you look at your life and you look at the disciples that are around you, your Peters, your Judases, your Johns, your James, your Matthews, your Lukes, your Marks, when you look at those people that are around you and everybody that is around you, they're on assignment. And when you look at and you see it from that perspective and understand that anything that has offended you, anything that has been a space of betrayal, anything that has been a space of just, how do you say, really any type of offense, any type of, um, um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not offense. It's another one that goes with offense. Anywho, anything basically offending you, or just taking it as betrayal, taken the wrong way, taken from, the wrong perspective, all of those different things, the wrongs, the, not treating you right, all of those different things. When you're looking at all of the people that did what they did, that said what they said, that are the way that they are, and the people that are around you, as you walk with God, you begin to understand that they're on assignment. One of the examples that he's given me, thank you, Holy Spirit, that he's given me to share, is when it comes down to marriages. When it comes down to your marriage, a lot of people think that marriages are supposed to be these fairy tale endings of this damsel in distress and this prince that has it all together, that comes to pick up the princess, and then they on their way and they live happily ever after after they get married. And it's like, we don't understand what real marriage is, what what it means to have someone that you're married to. That in that sense, it's a space of the friction that is in your marriage, the friction that is in that union is going to be things that are supposed to be basically a mirror showing you not necessarily your flaws, but to show you where you are not like Jesus, where you lack in the space of you need to be more like Jesus. So it's something that you then bring to Jesus, you bring to Holy Spirit so that he can minister that to you, so he can show you in what ways that you need to be better, not for it to be a argument, not for it to be a a disagreement, not for it to be something of strife and offense. And now it's this space where we're pitted against each other, and we now have pitchforks faced at each other trying to fight one another when we should be back to back facing the enemy, covering our vulnerable parts and facing the enemy to fight the enemy, because it's not us that is the problem, it's the problem that's the problem. And a lot of times we lose sight of that, and a lot of times we don't even know that, and a lot of times we don't even understand how that friction is supposed to be what is provoking you to purpose, Panina, what is supposed to be that iron sharpens iron, what is supposed to be um, uh, carrying each other's burdens. Thank you, Holy Spirit. With that being said, as you walk, um, you have to understand that the people around you are on assignment, and they are there to not only provoke you and push you into purpose, but they're also there to help you see the areas in which you need to work on, the areas in which you need to begin to move forward in. And so, what Abba was giving me with that is a level of understanding that when you understand that, and the understand that they are on assignment with what they came to do, whether that be good or bad, because some of them it's not always just this bad situation, but it's we tend to always look at the negative, and the negative being amplified. Yes, it's the good where they're the destiny helpers and the people, the kingdom partnerships and the whatnot that are supposed to help you. But a lot of times we're looking at the negative and we think like, okay, if they didn't do this, if they didn't happen to do that, if they didn't say it that way, if they didn't offend me in that manner, like we tend to look at these things as if they're just so bad, they're so negative, and then we begin to point fingers and blame them when not understanding that what they did something to our lens. And now when we resubmit it now, because we can't take that, harbor it, and then walk around with it in the space of in a unhealthy and toxic way, a dysfunctional way. No, when we take that and we resubmit that to Holy Spirit so that He can minister that to us, there's a way that that becomes a space and a place where we're able to grow from that. We're able to understand how that was something to sharpen us, that was something to grow us, that was something to temper us, that was something to help us understand how the enemy is moving and how people move, but also how we are supposed to be better ourselves in showing us what is on the inside of us, to help us either get rid of something, to purge something, to um, uh, um, put something on the altar, or to like just go in a space of consecration, to be in that refining fire, getting back on that potter's wheel so that we're able to allow Holy Spirit and allow Abba to kind of just chop certain things off and to help us in that, not so that we can how do you say, blame other people, or we can feel bad and shame filled and guilty and condemned, but no, so that we can have a space of conviction so that we can walk better. It's supposed to be a me versus me. So the old version of me becoming the new version of me, and is we're in that constant space, going from constant spaces of glory to glory and faith to faith. Thank you, Holy Spirit, that we come into this space where we're able to uh be better ourselves, because when we're better ourselves as better individuals, we're able to love our neighbor as ourselves, because we're better ourselves. We are loving ourselves more in the space of taking the time to actually heal from certain things, taking the time to resubmit those things, taking the time to understand those things. And as we do that and we become more healed and become more whole, we love ourselves more in turn, where we can love each other more. Of course, first and foremost, to love God with all your heart. But the second of those is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, what he was saying is that we need to walk in another level of forgiveness when we understand that they are on assignment with what they are doing, with what they are saying, with how they are being, with the things that they may be committing, the betrayals, the backstabbing, all of those things. They are on assignment, and being on assignment, sometimes that means that they know what they're doing. And but even just like Judas, he knew he was going to sell him for 30 pieces, excuse me, sell him out for 30 pieces of silver. He knew that's what he was going to do. But some of them don't know that, in the space of sometimes, like Peter, who was able to be led out of jail by the angel. He was in a trance and didn't even realize he was coming out of jail, or being like this divine jailbreak. This divine jailbreak. He didn't understand that that was going on until he woke up, and he was in this trance like state. So sometimes it can be divine, sometimes it can be as far as in being allowed, so the enemy being allowed to, do whatever he's coming to do, in the space of it being a trance like state where they don't know that they're doing that. Another way, thank you Holy Spirit, you can look at that is when you black out, when you get so angry that you black out, and then you wake up and you realize, okay, wait, what just happened? Or another thing is when you shouldn't be doing this, but when you get drunk, and you get drunk to the point that you black out, where you don't know what's happening or what's going on, and then you wake up like, what just happened? Like Hangover. Thank you, Holy Spirit. The movie Hangover. You just black out, and that's what it may look like when it comes down to people who don't know what they're doing. Another one. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He's bringing charm when they turned into different things, like um, Piper when she turned into a Wendigo, or Phoebe when she turned into a Banshee. They didn't know what they were doing while they were turned into this other thing. So there's a level of forgiveness, but even when they are doing it and they know what they're doing, like Judas knowing that he was going to sell Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver, is a space and place where it's like understanding this level of forgiveness, to forgive him in the space of, like how he said, go do what you're gonna do, but do it quickly. Go do what you're gonna do, because he knew he was on assignment to be able to now usher him into his assignment. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when you understand that, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, there's a level of forgiveness to know that, hey, they were on assignment. They were coming to do what they were supposed to do, in order to sharpen you, in order to get you better, in order to get you to a better space and place, because that is the way that Abba chose to do it, knowing that that is the best way to do it for you and your in particular story. So the way that he was unfolding that with just the space of like walking in that other level of forgiveness. Um, one second. Sorry about that. Had a brain fart there, but he was taking that in a space of like, how do you say? Thank you, Holy Spirit. Walking in forgiveness, and as you walk in forgiveness and you release, um, sorry, Lord, hold on. Sorry, it came and then it went, and then it came and then it went again, and I'm just like, okay, hold on. So what he was talking about in the space of understanding that they are on assignment, whether they know it or don't know it, there's a level of forgiveness. But in that level of forgiveness, there's a space and place of letting go. Part of forgiveness is letting go. And when you let it go, there is spaces and places in your life that you have to let a lot of things go. When it comes down to healing, and as you walk in your healing journey, you have to release things. You cannot hold and harbor all these offenses. That's what I was trying to get. Offenses. Was it? I don't know. Anywho, you cannot harbor all of these offenses, because when you have all of these offenses, thank you, Holy Spirit. I'm remembering TC with the series release. He's holding all of these little like balls and stuff. So it's like a bouncy ball, you got a basketball, you got a soccer ball, you got a volleyball. He's holding all of these balls in don't do that. No, don't even go there. He's holding them in his hands where his hands are just full. And so now that he's trying to catch something else that's coming his way, this nice giant beach ball, there's the one that's coming his way. He's not able to catch it because he has all these other ones just filled up in his hands. Great illustration. Anywho, the point being is that we can't all each one of those are the offenses, are the backstabbing, is the betrayal, is the hurt, the pain, the all of those things that we harbor and that we hold on to, how we were talking about deadly emotions and whatnot. Those are those things that we harbor and we hold on to. So you can't see things clearly. You can't get an upgrade. You can't get a update. You can't get a new impartation. It's a space of not being able to put new wine in the old skins. Like you can't you it just doesn't work because of the space of you not being able to release, you not being able to let go. Thank you, Holy Spirit. And he brought it to my attention in a manner or in a way of um as even as you go through things that are uncomfortable, even though as you go through things that are traumatic and painful and just stretching, um you are not that same version of you that you were before it happened. It's like a lizard or any type of reptile that's shedding its skin, whether it be a snake, an iguana, a lizard, whatever it is. They shed skin, and when they shed skin, they usually said shed skin, or even crabs when they shed their shell, they shed it because they are too big for it. They've gotten too big for it. They shed their skin, and you can see like the shell of the skin because they're too big for it. They've outgrown it. So you cannot stuff yourself back into that shell because it does not fit anymore. And that's the way that he was breaking it down to me or bringing it to me. So in that space, it's just the space of like, okay, um, as you understand that they're on assignment, walking in another level of forgiveness, but also in that space of you letting go. So you're just going to have to like shed those things that aren't for you anymore and that you cannot fit back into, just like that shed skin. As you walk and as you go, you're not 5 anymore. You're not 10 anymore. You're not 17 anymore. Um you may not be 20, you may not be 25 anymore. You may not be the woman that you was before you had a kid. You may not be the man you were before you had a kid. You may not be the person you were before you went through that trauma, before you went through that pain, before you went through that hurt. You're not that same person. You're a different person. So you cannot try and go back to what doesn't fit you anymore. You have to release it. You have to let it go so that you are able to now be in the present. Hey, the body that I have right now is the body that I have right now. The place that I have right now is the place that I have right now. And it's kind of just making it being content, not settled. Because what I heard it as is settled is where you don't expect anything else. Content is where you're just kind of like, this is for now until. And so when you're in that space of just being present where you are and allowing that to be a now until, then it's a space of like not letting the stuff that's behind you, not letting the past grip you, not letting the past take hold of you because you cannot fit there anymore. You're too big for it. And so just walking in that, in the space of just like, hey, understanding that they're on assignment, the forgiveness, and then just letting those things go, because as you let those things go, you're able to receive more, you're able to grow more, and then you're going from here to here to here to continual. Here's faith to faith and glory to glory. It's like the old version of you is not the new version of you. And then as the new version of you becomes the old version of you, there's a new version of you that you become. And you continually become until you, I was always going to be working on you, and there's always going to be something that he's going to be able to show you. He has a million ways to do one thing and one way to do a cajillion things. But before I start babbling and keep going and going on and on and on and on, I'm gonna end it here because Holy Spirit's like, wrap it up. So we're gonna wrap this up. Remember that God is love. Remember that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Do the thing, like, comment, and subscribe with the thing, with the thing, with the thing. Oh, and do not forget to bring this word back to Abba. Do not just take every word and run with it. Test the spirit by the spirit, and I'll be back up here when he sends me to. So, bye.